Uh, Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Cabinet Agenda on Friday, the 24th of May 2024. I'm your Chairman and Leader of the Council, Mark Stevenson. We've got quite a busy agenda today, so I'm going to jump straight into it. And I'm going to go for apologies for absence, please.
Leader, everybody appears to be present, so there are no apologies. Obviously, the Chief Executive would normally be here, but is absent from this meeting.
Thank you very much. And secondly, it's not on the agenda, but we thought it appropriate, being as a recent announcement from government, that we would refer to Democratic Services to make a statement.
Thank you, Leader. It's just to put on record, the Prime Minister, in calling the general election for the 4th of July, has also given direction to the civil service that the pre-election period will start at 1 minute past midnight tomorrow. The Local Government Association has given its advice to its members. Tendring District Council is a member of the Local Government Association, to follow suit, and therefore pre-election period for local government will start at exactly the same time, 1 minute past midnight tomorrow. There will be guidance issued to councillors and officers pursuant to the pre-election protocol that will be followed here.
Thank you, and if I could just add my thoughts to, can we try and refrain from bringing national politics into today's meeting? Okay, agenda item number 2 is minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of April. I'm going to move them. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Mick Barry.
I'll formally second those.
Very much. Are we all in agreement? Sorry. Thank you. Moving on to item number 3, declarations of interest.
Yes, Leader. I need to make a declaration of interest on item 7, as I'm a director of Freeport East. Also on item 9, because I'm a member of the Towns Board, and also on item 15, the funding of the PCSO for Harwich and Dovercourt, because I'm a member of Harwich Town Council and part of that decision making, and I will actually leave the room on that item.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. I also have to declare an interest. I am on the Clacton Town Board. Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Leader. I'll declare an interest in items 11 and 12. It's a minor interest in. I am a tenant of Tendring District Council, and those matters refer to housing. Thank you.
Are there any others? Okay. In that case, I'll move on to item number 4. Sorry.
Thank you, Leader. In relation to the item that Councillor Henderson has declared in relation to item A1, because he is appointed to the board of Freeport East, that is a other registrable interest, and I can confirm for the record that following the principles of section 33 of the Localism Act 2011, and in accordance with compliance paragraph 9.1 and paragraph 6 of Appendix B of the Council's Code of Conduct, I believe that it is appropriate to grant a dispensation to allow the Cabinet member to whom this Council has appointed to be on that board to present the item to Cabinet and to take part in the debate and vote. And similarly, the same principles would apply to Councillor Henderson and yourself, Leader, for the Town Board, which is item A9, as this Council has appointed you to both of you to that board for the same principles. However, a dispensation is not granted in relation to the item relating to the Harwich PCSO, and Councillor Henderson has indicated that he's going to leave the room for that item. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hastings. Right, moving us on to agenda item number 4, announcements by the Leader of the Council. I haven't got any. There's a huge amount of work to be done on this agenda, so I've kept my comments to nothing today. Agenda item number 5, announcements by Cabinet members. For the same reasons, we decided that it would be most appropriate for us not to make any comments today and just to get on with the matters in hand. It's going to take quite some time to get through this agenda. Thank you very much. Number 6, matters referred to the Cabinet by the Council. There are none referred to us, which takes us nicely on to number 7, which is Leader of the Council's report by the Council and Economic Growth, Regeneration and Tourism. This is the Freeport East Programme and Business Plan, and I will look for you to lead on that item, please. Councillor Henderson, sorry.
Thank you, Leader. This report is to update the Cabinet on the good progress made by Freeport East Programme and recommends the approval of the Freeport East Limited Annual Business Plan for 2024-25 and the retained business rates strategy. Freeport East oversees the programme delivering new jobs and businesses on 3 tax sites, which of course includes the Bathside Bay, as well as regeneration benefits within that. The business plan has 4 objectives: to establish the Freeport East Company, to establish and deliver an ambitious vision for Freeport East, to deliver investment and to make the most of Freeport East's visibility and voice. I've discussed the business plan with the Freeport East Member Working Party and had the chance to share some of the good work that is underway and more that is planned. I'm pleased to say that the Freeport East Limited is now funded from business rates on tax sites, so there is no risk to this council, and they are able to recruit more staff to meet their capacity constraints. We're now seeing good progress with the programme, not least the council approving planning permission for the temporary change of use for Bathside Bay to a green energy hub. And in future plans are also good for the district. They include supporting the development of a Harwich Innovation Cluster to bring innovation companies to Harwich that support green energy. This is where the retained rates strategy comes in. The strategy sets out the programme will bring in between 200 million and 300 million over 25 years from the business rates firms pay on the 3 tax sites in Suffolk and tendering, and also the process for deciding how to spend it, and the list of potential projects. A list of potential projects includes helping to unlock Bathside Bay, and also the Harwich Innovation Centre, the A120 widening, and bus rapid transport, and A133 widening. Freeport East changed this strategy to in line with ours, so that there is more funding available to bring forward Bathside Bay. I'm pleased to report on the progress with Freeport East, and I'm pleased to move the recommendations on page 24. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. And yeah, can I just second that for you? And you know, it's a good report on page 37 to 62. It gives a good vision of it, but I'm particularly interested in strategy, which is the in-depth way of looking at things on the pages 63 to 100. And in particular, it was pages 98 to 100, which, you know, if anybody just wants to do a quick skim of it, it talks about some of the things that are the strategy for Suffolk and for tendering. And there are some things in there, and I'll just read out one of them, which really catches it. The widening of the A120, something that tendering has been pushing for quite some time. And I think if you go through, there's probably about 20 on there, and about 10 of them are ours. These are some of the long-term goals that we've been trying to push for some time in both administrations. And so I welcome this report, and I'm more than happy to second it. Any comments? Councillor Bush.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, well, I also welcome and endorse this report. In fact, I mean, listening to Councillor Henderson's statement, what else can I add is that there's an excitement here. I've been working with the officers and the working party group at Freeport East for some time. And in the early days, I had reservations when there was lots of risk. I'm not saying there's risks all over in terms of finance and our position, but what I've seen for this report and the work that Freeport East have done in recent times, and I'd encourage all members to read this because it's quite ambitious, it's invigorating, but the opportunity is unprecedented for our area. I mean, it's a wonderful opportunity for the green energy, and also other opportunities because there'll be associated businesses that will be drawn into this that support that industry. And just to give an example, only this week, 38% of our electricity generated is through wind, which is continuing to grow. And with the offshore commitments of 50 gigawatts to feed into these networks, we are really in the position to really take the grasp of the network for so many other broader opportunities in business, for career opportunities, job opportunities full scale, and really to go looking at one thing I would like to say is that we're seeing a whole new rewire of the national grid, and the offshore is going to be a major contributor to this. And we are right at the hub. So I can only but just actually endorse everything that's going forward. The Freeport Board, with what they've created in this strategy plan and their business plan, is a really good foundation. It's getting momentum. And one thing that really inspired me is what I'm seeing is a collective collaboration between all those parties that perhaps in the beginning had different ambitions to develop their own areas within the Freeport. We are seeing it come together, and my thanks goes to everybody involved. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Bush. Councillor Bray.
Thanks, Leader. Yeah, just a few comments. I agree with everything Councillor Bush just said. It's a fabulous opportunity. I had the pleasure of being part of the planning committee recently. You mentioned the temporary approval that was just given on it. So I actually got to go into the site and have a little look around. It's the energy over there. It's the desire. You can feel it. It's palpable. It's excellent. You did talk about the retained rates, which of course is really interesting because we're talking about substantial amounts there. And of course, you may have mentioned the widening of roads and things. So it would be rude of me not to say, and I'm sure there won't be. Is there a timescale for that?
Not at this time. As you all know, and the leader mentioned earlier, it's an ambition of this council, and I know I've raised it on several occasions at Essex County Council as well, and I know it's an ambition of theirs as well, and I know there's lots of lobbying going on. One of the issues, specifically on the A120 side of things, is in the meantime, there's some safety issues that we really need to deal with, and I've been raising some of those issues with National Highways. But to answer your question, the need is to get into the next finance budget for those roads, and I think the lobbying is trying to do just that. So no timetable, but we've got the mechanisms there now to actually be able to lobby, and also looking at future funds which come our way. Just on another issue with in answer to Councillor Bush, and it's really good, again, the report, if you look at it, and this is all about creating opportunities for business and for our residents and young people for the future. That this is what this is about, the opportunity. And if you look on page 56, it says quite clearly there, an engagement program specifically designed at young people. And I know that Freeport East have got all sorts of projects and processes underway to actually take these opportunities to as many young people as possible, and other people, adults as well, who are possibly looking to retrain and reskill and take this opportunity, take up this opportunity. So there's some really good stuff. One of the things that really impressed me going forward is when they say making the most of our visibility and voice, their communication side of thing is working really well. And hopefully some of you have seen some of the press releases, and I know LinkedIn, that they don't lose an opportunity to make sure that they're promoting the area and promoting the opportunities for the future. And there is a big lobbying and public affairs exercise going on to make sure that we get into the heart of government to make sure that they know what is needed to make this whole thing become a reality. Thank you.
Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the question I want to ask Councillor Henderson is, I welcome the A120 widening and the rapid transport system along there. Will that link up to the Garden communities with their rapid transport system going forward, going down the line? And the A133 widening, a lot of that area is in my patch. Where exactly would the widening be? Would it be west of the district or east of the district? I'd be interested to know. It's welcomed if we do get the widening of the A120, but the A133 is in the centre of the district, and I'd be interested to know where exactly.
To answer Councillor Scott, I think what this list does is it actually works with our partners, so we're there adding that support to what's already planned, and you'll know what's already planned as well. But they're just making Freeport East is making a priority what's already a priority in delivery. So whatever exists at the moment, whatever the plans are at the moment for garden communities and for those links to be made, Freeport East are supporting all of those things in partnership.
Any other comments? Okay, it's been moved by Evan, seconded by me. Are we all in agreement for recommendation on page 4? Yeah. Okay, agenda item number 8. So once again, this is Councillor Henderson. This is the report and the update of levelling up funds and capital regeneration projects.
Thanks again, Leader. I'm pleased to report on the positive progress with the levelling up fund schemes and the capital regeneration projects. When I last updated the Cabinet, the Council was planning to complete agreements with Essex County Council so they could progress their 3 projects. These agreements are now in place and the projects are underway. The Clacton Hub to rebuild Clacton Library and create new space for adult community learning, and the Centre for Coastal Communities is now at a design stage. In Dovercourt, ECC's designs for the improvements to the Kingsway are excellent, and their temporary library relocation is now planned, so the library will be available during the improvements works that move the adult education and learning back into the town. We're also making good progress on the schemes we are leading on. I was pleased that the government agreed to change the Dovercourt scheme, which now includes 2 derelict sites in Victoria Street that will be regenerated which will regenerate at least 9 social homes. And we will take the top off of the Milton Road car park for more ground floor parking. I've asked officers to bring back a report on the details of the timing of this enabling works to see what can be expedited. And just to say to members, a lot of the things that we're doing, there was a really good consultation taking place with Essex Highways during the planning and design side of this, and some of the stuff we're picking up has been the results of residents' feedback. So this is really good to say that we've listened to residents and we're doing what we believe they requested. And in Clacton, officers have recruited the design teams for the Carnarvon Terrace scheme and expect consultation soon on the designs, subject to pre-election restrictions. Delivery risks remain, as they do in all capital programmes, and I recognise the pressure on officers across the council that comes from delivering a programme of this scale. With 40 million between government and match funding, I'm pleased to report this progress to this Cabinet and move recommendation on page 103. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. I'm happy to second this one also for you. And thank you for the update. I mean, you know, we get regular updates anyway, but it's always good to get it out in the public that we are progressing these rather large projects in a timely manner. And I think I'll reiterate your comments around having the capacity within the organisation to make sure that these are progressed in a timely manner. I'm looking forward to seeing the removal of Milton Road car park. If I'm honest, I would like to see the new layout of Dover Court with its extra parking spaces and the corridor that's going to come through, and other bits and pieces, which I won't steal from you because that's in the next item. So, any comments from anybody? Okay, well, it's been moved by Councillor Henderson, seconded by me. Are we all in agreement? Thank you very much. Okay, the next item agenda, as I referred to, is also yours, Councillor Henderson.
It's good to be part of a good news team and department. I'm pleased to move this item. I'm able to report further progress on the long-term plan for towns in Clacton and the High Street Accelerator programme in Dovercourt. George Kiefer, who many of us will know, has taken on the chair's role of the Clacton Town Board. Indeed, the next board meeting is right after this Cabinet. The board, working with the council, expects to develop a long-term plan to be submitted to the Department of Levelling Up, Housing and Communities by the 1st of August 2024. With consultation planned with businesses, young people, local residents and community groups. We're in contact with the government officials to see whether the election date changes the timelines of this process. I'm sure you will have spotted the deliberate mistake. There is 220,000, not 230,000 left after the 30,000 set aside for the community engagement. I think you'll see that as a mistake on page 118. The High Street Accelerator, chaired by Paul Milson, had a very successful launch on the 30th of March, and the wrapping of shops has been a particular highlight. And on the back of that, you'd have also seen that we had a really successful launch with a community day on the new open space Orwell Place at the start of that launch. And there was a really large number of people attended that. It was a free event and there was lots of different activities put on the square. And the feedback we got from the public was excellent. So it's been a really good start. That was with the first 50,000. We now have 187,000 to spend on projects in Dovercourt this year. And we are working with the Accelerator Board to discuss options. We had a meeting yesterday and we were looking at those and listing the priorities. We also received 500,000 for the green space improvements to Dovercourt. We are looking at improvements to the connection between the town centre and the seafront, including the Cliff Park Gardens at the end of Kingsway, and improvements and access through the tunnel from the High Street to the Cliffs. If anyone knows the area, if you go up Kingsway, there's a cut through and you can end up in Empire Road, and then there's a tunnel which leads you right onto the seafront, which will give better access for people with mobility problems. So it could be really good news doing that. And we're also looking at another connection where we can have a connection from the town centre into or from Cliff Park and into Cliff Park. So we're making those green connections both from Cliff Park and to the seafront. And we're also looking at better signage so we can draw people from the seafront to the town centre. So we're making that connectivity much better so we can improve the footfall into the town centre. You'll see the lists of what's being looked at on page 118. I want to highlight the staffing capacity risks again to the delivery of all these projects. The government expects the council to deliver the 500,000 green space project in 9 months, alongside all the other levelling up work and business as usual. We need to prioritise what is possible to achieve. And with that, yeah, again, really good news and a really good team and a partnership working together on the subject of the accelerator and the Towns Board. I'm very pleased to move the recommendations on pages 119 and 120.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. And once again, I'm going to second this one, mainly because I've got a vested interest. I went up to Manchester with one of our officers at the beginning of the accelerator bid and was pleased that we did that work and received that. And I also attended the launch that you mentioned, and it was very, very successful. In particular, I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but we wrapped the shops, which gave the whole area a different feel. It didn't look run down, it just looked vibrant and energetic. And speaking to some of the residents there, they seemed extremely happy with what was going on in Dovercourt, and we're looking forward to the next bits that come. So I'm happy to second that. Also, I'm, as I mentioned in my declarations, I'm also on the Clacton Town Board, and whilst I still think it's in its early days, we are ahead of the crowd. We've got a lot going on there. And it doesn't help when people throw general elections in, but we'll move it forward as best we can, considering the general elections. Councillor Honeywood, you wanted to come in.
Thank you, Chairman. As you say, we've heard a lot about Harwich and Dovercourt, and I have a couple of questions on the Clacton part, and that is, when is the long-term plan going to be ready, and how will the community be involved?
Councillor Henderson?
Yeah, you'll see from my outlined report and statement that we're setting up this 30,000. We're putting aside 30,000 from the 250,000, which we've already been given from the government, to do an engagement program. So the engagement program will be starting. We're just drawing that up to meet with the groups that I actually mentioned within their businesses, local community, young people, residents, will all be included in that engagement program, and that will be funded. And you'll also see from the report that the government, before we release that money, we had to have a terms of reference and a governance in place, and we also need to look at a vision over so many years. So we're developing that vision with the Town Centre Board at the moment as we meet. And we're, again, like I said, we're meeting again today. The good news about that is that once we provide that vision and that investment strategy to the government, you'll see from the report as well that we're not restricted. We don't lose. If we don't deliver something in 1 year, the money can be passed over to the following year. So we can accumulate what we don't spend and still have that investment to do. But we're early stages still at the moment. The vision and the investment strategy and the I suppose the list of projects are the ownership of the board. The government specifically says that it's not for us as a council to come out with those projects and that vision. It's actually for the board to come out with that vision. So we're now working on that at the moment. Hopefully we'll have something possibly have something to give to the next working party, the next time we meet.
Just to follow up then, so in your view, the long-term plan being ready is quite some time in the future?
So just Lee Healy.
Thank you. The plan is due to be submitted on the 1st of August this year. Obviously, with the election announced, government may need to change that depending on how the pre-election period might impact on the development of that plan. But currently, 1st of August is what is the date for production.
Last point then, from what's been said, it seems like you've got ideas in hand. Is it possible to have a provisional timetable of your plan?
I think I'll take this. I was conferring with Ivan and we were discussing whether it was the end of July, beginning of August. So the plan had to be in by the beginning of July. And this was all pre-election statement about snap elections. Now, we plan to do the consultation this coming month so that we could feed that into producing the plan for the end of July. We're unable to do the consultation now for obvious reasons around an election. And so we're waiting for government to give us advice on how to proceed and whether those deadlines still apply. So I think that's where we are right now. We can give you a better update once we've had the responses back from government. Hastings.
I think it's worth noting for all members and members of the public, if they're interested, viewing this, that when we go into pre-election period, what the council has to do in response to that is actually review anything that was planned during that period, whether it be consultation work, whether it be decision making, whether it be events, etc., etc., etc. So we will have to undertake that review. As the leader and councillor Henderson have said, that might be impacted upon by the announcement as well. But Tendring District Council is the accountable body for the money. So we will have to make those assessments. But I'm sure you can appreciate that at the moment it's a bit too early for us to say when things are going to come forward. But as soon as we know, we can share the information. I think it's fair to say, isn't it?
Sorry, it sounds a little bit secretive, but I guess basically part of the problem is that we don't know what government's going to say about this sort of thing. I think we've got at the town board today, we're going to try and progress things as far as we can with what the current situation is. But we'll happily give you a feedback as soon as we've got some answers for you, Councillor Honeywood. Any other questions? Comments? No. Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Henderson, seconded by me. The recommendation is page 119 to 120. Are we agreed? Thank you very much. Right. Agenda item number 10. And this is a report for housing planning and portfolio holder. So a little bit of a break for Councillor Henderson. This is the adoption and consideration and adoption of reasonable adjustment policy, vulnerability policy, and unacceptable customer behaviour policy. And this is you, Councillor Baker.
It is indeed, Chairman. Thank you very much. As you can see from the report, I'm seeking Cabinet's approval to adopt the further 3 new housing policies, which you've just outlined. These being a reasonable adjustments policy, vulnerability policy, and an unacceptable customer behaviour policy. The complete policies are shown at appendices A to B to attach to this report, and the recommendations are shown on pages 143 and 144 of the agenda. These policies formalise some of the extensive work already being undertaken in the Housing and Environmental Directorate. These policies are designed to assist the Council in meeting the Regulator of Social Housing's revised consumer standards, which, as I've said before, came into effect on the 1st of April, as well as the requirements and recommendations of the Housing Ombudsman. The Reasonable Adjustments Policy defines what a reasonable adjustment is, provides an overview of the types of adjustments that the Council would consider, as well as how customers can request the reasonable adjustment. The Vulnerability Policy sets out this Council's commitment to assisting those vulnerable customers to ensure they can access our services and to ensure that our vulnerable tenants receive assistance to sustain that tenancy should it be required. It also sets out how the Council will support tenants who are vulnerable and explains how we will define, assess and record those vulnerabilities. Communication with our housing customers is normally straightforward. and they have the right to express their views, ask questions about our housing services, and these provide this council with help as to how to improve and deliver the services this council provides. However, in a small number of cases, there are those who behave in a manner towards council staff, our contractors, or others providing a service on this council's behalf, or make demands that are unacceptable. The unacceptable customer behaviour policy defines which behaviours are to be classed as unreasonable and how the council will respond to that behaviour. All of these policies, as I've said, meet the regulator of social housing rights consumer standards and the expectations and recommendations of the Housing Ombudsman. And I move the recommendations as outlined on page 143. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Leader. I'm happy to second these and give support to the adoption of the 3 policies that the portfolio holder has just outlined. Thank you.
Do we have any comments on these policies? I'd just like to say, a big thank you to the portfolio holder and his staff. It seems like a never-ending list of policies that are coming through Cabinet these days. The update of these is going to be crucial to our Ombudsman inspections, should we ever have one. And I think it's a timely plod of pushing these policies through. So thank you for that. And I'm happy if it's been moved by Councillor Baker, seconded by Councillor Cox. Recommendations of page 143 to 144. Are we in agreement? Thank you very much. Agenda item number 11. Once again, this is Councillor Baker, and this is the annual housing complaints performance and service improvement report, including self-assessment against housing ombudsman complaint handling codes. Councillor Baker.
My apologies. Chairman, this report presents to Cabinet an annual complaints performance and service improvement report for scrutiny and challenge, shown in Appendix A to this report, which includes a self-assessment carried out against the Housing Ombudsman Complaint Handling Code for 2023-2024 prior to publication and submission, with a number of recommendations to Cabinet, which are shown on page 178. In July 2020, the Housing Ombudsman published a new complaint handling code that provided a framework for high quality complaint handling and greater consistency across landlords' complaint procedures. On 1st of April, and I keep saying this date, the Housing Ombudsman Complaint Handling Code became statutory, accompanied by a further revision of that code. As the portfolio holder for housing, I recently agreed amendments to this council's housing complaints policy, which was first introduced in 2022 to take account of this revision. The Housing Ombudsman Code requires one member of the governing body, in this council's case, Cabinet, to have the lead responsibility for housing complaints. This role, entitled Member Responsible for Complaints, is responsible for ensuring that Cabinet receives regular information on complaints that provide insight and learning on the landlord's complaint handling performance. The Code also requires landlords to produce an annual complaints performance and service improvement report for scrutiny and challenge, as I've said, and for this information to be presented to the landlord's governing body, Cabinet. As part of this, the Council is also required to carry out an annual self-assessment against the Code, and this self-assessment is shown at Appendix B to this report. Apologies, I lost my page. So, since the 1st of April, the Housing Ombudsman has been responsible for monitoring compliance with the Code. Therefore, all landlords are required to submit their self-assessment to the Housing Ombudsman by the 30th of June each year. That commences this year. Should this council fail to submit its self-assessment by that date, it would risk non-compliance with the Complaints Handling Code. Both the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman and the Housing Ombudsman have been working to harmonise their respective codes for complaint handling and consulted late last year on having a single code across both areas. In recognition of the 2 different legal powers each organisation has, they concluded to produce 2 closely aligned codes for complaint handling. In view of this, recommendation E is for Cabinet to note that there is to be a review in this financial year 2024-2025 of both the Council's corporate complaints policy and the housing complaints policy so that they deliver the expectations of the codes I've just mentioned. As I previously said, the annual complaint performance is shown Appendix A. It covers the date from 1st of April 2023 to the 31st of March of this year and shows the number of complaints recorded, the number handled at each stage of the process by type, service area and performance. There has been a significant increase in the number of complaints recorded since the introduction and adoption of the Housing Ombudsman's definition of a complaint, which is shown on page 188 near the top of the page. However, the revised complaint handling code only relates to the council's role as a landlord and those complaints which can be escalated to the Ombudsman under their remit. This council's housing complaints policy is considerably broader and now includes complaints regarding housing register application and homelessness approaches, and this is to ensure that all tenants, potential tenants and applicants receive the same standard of service in terms of response times and their standard of response. As can be seen, as from the 1st of April of this year, I am to receive quarterly reports on volume, outcomes and trends of complaints being received, the first of which will be in July at the monthly meetings I hold with senior officers and housing managers where performance is regularly reviewed. Looking at the complaints received and seeing what issues have been raised by our tenants is vitally important in order that the council can see what has gone wrong and how the varying issues raised can be avoided in the future. I would therefore encourage tenants to raise any concerns they have about the property they reside in. Through the various ways they are able, the council can only learn and put right that which is aware of. Chairman, I move the recommendations as outlined on page 178 and would welcome Cabinet's formal response in relation to the annual complaints performance and service improvement report for publication. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Do you have a seconder?
Yes, please, Leader. I'm happy to second this item, and it's good to see that our self-assessment ticks all the boxes against the Housing Ombudsman's complaint handling code. But for the council, this is much more than a tick box exercise. Any decent social landlord should be judged not just on the numbers of complaints it responds to, but how it responds to complaints, and also what it learns from the resolution of issues for tenants and leaseholders, and how it can then further improve. Our participation in the code gives us this opportunity to do so, and I'm happy to second the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. That'll be £10 to the chairman's fund, please, Councillor Scott. Councillor Honeywood.
It's nice to have introductory music before I speak. Wasn't a fan. Yeah, a fanfare. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Baker, for your comments and your report. During your speech, you referred to page 188, the report, which states, and I'll read it out to save people page flicking. It says there has been a significant increase in the complaints recorded since the reintroduction and adoption of the Housing Ombudsman's definition of a complaint, which is, and to quote their definition, an expression of dissatisfaction, however made, about the standard of service, actions, or lack of action by the organisation, its own staff, or those acting on its behalf, affecting an individual, resident, or group of residents. So my question is, or it's a two-part question, is do you put this rise that we've seen down to the changes in the criteria? And if so, do you expect to see a fall in the complaints in the future?
I'll answer the second one first, if I may. I would hope to see a fall, but I would, as I've said, I would encourage people to complain if they have a complaint, because it gives them the chance to put it right. If we don't know of an issue, then how can we put it right? We do have over 3,000, as you're aware, we're aware, over 3,000 properties in our housing stock, and also some leasehold properties. So I would expect I would expect possibly it to stay the same or increase, possibly, but I would like to see it reduce. And I do apologise, I've forgotten the first question because I didn't scribble it down.
First part is, do you put down this rise to the changes in the criteria that's now being used?
I think the rise is possibly, and without looking at the actual figures and going into it in full detail, I think the rise is possibly due to the fact that we go beyond that definition, or it doesn't just revolve around housing, it revolves around our homelessness issues and also our application or allocation of housing. So we've gone a little bit further in our complaints procedure than the Ombudsman. The Ombudsman in relation to housing. So I think that may have an impact. If you took those out, then the figure might fall. But I haven't done analysis of those figures. I didn't go into it in that detail. If that helps.
So is there more information to the background of the report that's been published, or is that complete report?
I think if you look at the appendices at complaints performance, that breaks it down as to the type. And the first answer is no, that there is no further information that I've got. But if you actually look at what the complaints are, and I'm just looking on, if I draw your attention, if I may, to, just got to make it bigger because I can't see, page 189, if you look at complaints received by type service area, you'll notice in there homelessness applications and housing register applications and housing transfers. They may not come within what the Ombudsman is looking for or in there. So if you took those out, then the figure would drop. But like I say, I personally haven't gone into that in detail. I mean, I welcome the complaints. You know, like I say, we can only improve and that'd be a good thing in my view. Thank you.
Obviously, I wouldn't want to put words in your mouth, but from the impression I'm getting is that the procedure we're using has resulted in a rise. That's not a criticism of the council. It's not a criticism of the council's running of homes. It's the fact that if you're using a much more stricter complaints process that increases or encourages more concerns to be raised.
I think one of the comments from the regulator was there's no such thing as a bad complaint. So all complaints are good and we improve from that. And that is one standard that we are kept to. One of many we are going to be kept to is that how we deal with our complaints, how we put things right. So I'm expecting a rise because I want people to complain if there is an issue they want to complain about. And like I said earlier, ours is broader than just housing. It's around housing things, but it's not just about conditional housing. It's about the register applications, how we've dealt with those applications, how we've dealt with the homelessness approach. Those are included as part of our complaints procedure now, whereas before they weren't necessarily. So I hope that gives you some reassurance that although they're going up, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Thanks very much.
Councillor Bray.
Thanks, Leader. Yeah, just moving on to that, Councillor Honeywood asked most of what I wanted to ask, but the difference between the 22, 23, 23, 24 figures is a dead 50, funnily enough, which is quite handy, isn't it? Nice round number. Is there any use, or would it be helpful to everybody if we were able to disseminate how many of those 124 cases would have been complaints prior to the changes? Is that easy to do or difficult to do? How many of those would have come in as complaints without the new regulations, so we could then get a sort of accurate reading of this year as against last year? Is that possible to do that? Is there any benefit to doing it?
It probably is possible to do. Whether there's any benefit, I wouldn't want to hazard a guess. If it's something that you wish me to look at, then I can. But obviously that will depend on what staff are available to do, and bearing in mind where we are now. But yes, if you want to, I'll quite happily take that forward if necessary, if you wish it.
Councillor Bray?
Yeah, I think it's just quite a case of year on year. It's good to see where we're going, and because of the changes this year against last year, it's sort of impossible to disseminate any other way. We can't see if under the old rules we'd still be doing as well as we were, as bad as we were. But I do agree with your comment in that complaints are a good thing because they allow you to know what needs fixing. Without complaints, you don't know what to fix. So I look at that both ways, but I think there would be some advantage to having that. Thank you, Leader.
Are there any other comments? Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Baker, seconded by Councillor Cox. Actually, before I go to that, I've missed something. Right, part of the response for the recommendation C is that I read out Cabinet's response, which I'm quite happy to do now. We thank Councillor Baker for presenting this report to Cabinet today. We fully endorse everything that he has said and warmly welcome the content of the report and its recommendations. As a Cabinet, we recognise the importance of providing good quality housing and that responding to complaints forms an important part of that service. We fully support and adopt the Housing Ombudsman's revised complaint handling code and are committed to high quality complaint handling. It is important that we learn from all complaints and provide a positive response. We support Councillor Baker as housing portfolio holder taking on responsibility for housing complaints, and he will ensure that we as a Cabinet receive regular information and updates on complaints. In particular, what they tell us about our housing service, what we have learned from them, and what we have done to put problems right. It is notable that the number of complaints received has been increasing, and that is something that will be explored over the coming months to see what we can do better as part of the programme of continuous improvement for our housing service. That's our formal reply. Obviously, we heard your comments, so that last paragraph will feed into what we were talking about. So having formally responded to Councillor Baker, I'm going to move the recommendations. We all agreed? Thank you very much. Okay, and the next agenda item is agenda item number 12. This is yours again, Councillor Baker. Further update on Spendles House and review of budget and reference under Section 5 of the Local Government and Housing Act. And I believe this is a report from yourself and the Monitoring Officer.
Thank you, Leader. I have got quite a bit to say, so you have to bear with me. This report on pages 229 to 244, together with the addendum report published, details the progress on the Spendles House project, as well as seeking additional funding to address issues that were not within the original specifications, with many only coming to light during the course of the project. The report also informs members of a breach in the Council's financial procedure rules and legal decision-making requirements in regard to a variation of a contract without the relevant approvals in place and the actions taken in response to that breach under Section 5 of the Local Government and Housing Act 1989. You will all recall that Cabinet agreed some time ago now that Spendles House would be retained and reconfigured for the provision of temporary housing accommodation, primarily for families. The rationale behind bringing Spendles House back into use was, and still is, based on the ever-increasing cost of temporary accommodation, which is being experienced by all councils across the country, as well as reusing a redundant council property. The social value of continuing with this project is still valid. Families will be housed in a more suitable setting than a hotel or bed and breakfast. There will hopefully be less impact on children's education and health. There will also be at that location 2 members of staff available to assist those accommodated in moving forward from the unfortunate situation they find themselves in. Bringing Spendles House into use as temporary accommodation as soon as possible relies heavily on the project being completed and is the right thing to do for our residents. Taking the long-term view, demand for temporary accommodation remains high and is increasing, with a continuing shortfall in alternative or cheaper temporary accommodation. Therefore, it is still considered that the Spendles House project will provide value for money and includes providing more suitable accommodation, as I previously stated. During the refurbishment, the need for additional works were identified as being required, which were beyond the original specification and therefore not priced within that. These further works are shown on page 231, and instructions for various additional work have been issued, and the financial effect of these instructions has increased the cost of the project beyond the budget established. As can be seen at the bottom of page 232, some of these additional costs were incurred without the proper authorisation, in that the council's financial procedure rules were not followed in seeking funding for variations prior to commitments being made to the contractor. Instructions have been given for which there is no authority and no budget. This report and the addendum seek to rectify this, in that I'm asking for further finance be approved in order that both the unauthorised and further estimated expenditure be formalised so that the project can be completed. There is a huge risk that should this project not be completed or delayed further, the opportunity to reduce the amount this council is spending on the provisions of temporary accommodation would be missed. This would, of course, not improve the living conditions of those families with children who are currently living in temporary accommodation or those likely to come forward in the future. There would also then still be the issue of what to do with the partially completed refurbishment of the building, with not only substantial contract termination costs, but ongoing costs in relation to the maintenance and security, etc. In relation to the breach of the council's financial procedure rules, the Chief Executive has instructed that a formal review be undertaken to provide further clarity as to how the issues arose and developed, including governance arrangements associated with issuing verbal orders, as well as sent out instructions to all senior managers relating to financial and budget management, explaining consequences and expectations of them in their roles. And this will be supported by further meetings in the coming weeks and months, and arrangements for the implementation of a senior officer project board that will report to the management team regularly. I acknowledge this is a significant reputation and value for money issue for the council, and we need assurances ourselves, as well as providing assurances to our partners that the council have taken the necessary steps to avoid, as far as reasonably possible, to prevent the issue arising in the future. With this in mind, I look forward to receiving updates against the actions I've just mentioned, and I would also welcome the views and support of the Resources and Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee, as well as the Audit Committee. The recommendations are shown on pages 233 to 234 of the agenda, and there are a further 3 recommendations shown on the last page of the addendum. I do not intend to read them all out, they're lengthy. Chairman, I move the recommendations as shown.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. And just for the record, I'm happy to second this report. And yeah, I just sit there and look at you and think, thank you, that was a really good response for that. So I hadn't heard that response before. And yeah, it's just the way, unfortunately, things are at the moment. I'm sure there's going to be some comments, so I'll go straight to them. Councillor Honeywood.
I like the way Councillor Stevens looked straight at me when he said, I'm sure there's going to be a response. Yes.
Sorry, Councillor Honeywood. Bear with me 1 second. Sorry, Councillor Honeywood. I think we just need to clear something up. We're moving 2 reports today, the actual report and the addendum. So would you like to move them? And I'm happy to.
Yeah, my apologies, Leader. I didn't make myself very clear, did I? So the main report and the main agenda and the addendum might move both the recommendations in both of those reports.
And I'm happy to second both sets of recommendations in both the main report and its addendum. Councillor Honeywood.
Thank you, Chairman. Having looked at this report, on the 15th of May, the initial report said that the total cost will be 2.25 million. And that we're looking at taking 850,000 from reserves to fill that gap. I then received a later report saying that the cost will be 2.337 million. That was on the 21st of May. And that we're now going to have to take 860,000 from reserves. Would you say that this project is spiralling out of control financially?
Has it gone further than we would like? Absolutely. There's a Section 5 report that details all of that. Is it out of control? No. I think we're in a position now where if you look at the alternatives, page 234, 235, we were to pull out, that would significantly cost us £500,000 plus, and would actually leave us with a building that we would have to pay rates and excess money on, and wouldn't, and here's the thing, create the social value that we originally and your administration created. And that's around the temporary accommodation. That's still a real big factor. We currently have families sitting in hotels and bed and breakfasts with no proper accommodation. And this is just one of those ways that we can get this done. Now, if you look at the alternatives on pages 234 and 235, it's five. I'm looking at it here. It's close to the money it would take to finish the project. I think we've been reassured, and that's the real key point here. And I notice it's going to your scrutiny committee, so I'm happy to come along to that and reassure you again that this is the final number, and it's not spiraling out of control. We are at this point, and that's the assurance we've had from both the delivery, the operation side of it, that this is as far as we'll go with. And so I think based on that information and the cost to withdraw or stop the contract, the best way forward is to finish it and get our residents into temporary accommodations far more suitable than the bed and breakfast and hotels we have at the current.
Okay, thanks for that. As I said, my question was around the financials being out of control, and you gave assurance that this is the final number, so I'm happy with that. Next question is, how long have you known about this?
This came to my notice at the latter part of February. I then discussed it literally on the 4th of March with the corporate director, Mr. Williams. And we have been talking about this ever since, at least on a weekly basis, if not more often, to work out. At that time, we didn't know exact figures, which you'll appreciate. And it's taken this amount of time to come to this situation where we are now. So that's how long I have known about it. And I have been pushing officers to come to and tell me, so that I can tell everybody else, that this is the amount, this is what needs doing, and let's get it done.
Okay, thanks for that. That's helpful. The reason I asked is because in the HRA speech by Councillor Stevenson, which was in February, there was no mention of any problems. In the general fund budget speech, it was actually said a favourable impact on the council's finances. Obviously, the issue was raised by the scrutiny committee on the 5th of March with yourself, in which you said it wouldn't be April, later this year, and I think your terms was, don't quote me, it may well open in August. As I say, and then in the state of tendering speech, which was in March, again, there was no mention. 19th of April this year, Cabinet, I asked you good self, you confirmed it was overdue and over budget, but were unable to say by how much. You can see why I'm worried.
And I completely appreciate why you would be worried. I was when I first found out about it. And when I said it was over budget on the 19th of April, it was. How much by? I didn't know. I couldn't tell you exactly, but it was over budget. There is in the report, it does say the 15th of August that it will be open. And yes, I did say on the 5th of March, when I came to your scrutiny meeting and introduced my portfolios, I said there would be a delay. I didn't know at that time how long that delay would be. There was an issue around, as I think I recall, there had been a theft. That had put it back a couple of weeks. This issue was just developing, as far as I was concerned. And I wasn't going to make a comment as to how long or how much it was going to cost, because I couldn't. But yes, I can appreciate why you were worried. I was, and I had some very frank discussions with officers.
Only a couple more bits with your indulgence. In my view, the housing strategy is currently in free fall. And now we're taking 860,000 from the HRA reserve. Where does this leave the future of TDC housing? I particularly asked this question because residents have contacted me in the Jaywick Sands area and asked me, have the plans to deliver 100 homes now been abandoned?
As I've said previously, and I did say, didn't I, in January, that I didn't think the HRA budget aligned with the housing strategy. With the introduction of the new regulations, with the regulator for social housing, I've said that the main thrust at the moment is to make sure that our current homes meet the standards, the decent home standards that we have at the moment. There could be changes to that coming in later this year. Whether that happens or not is unknown. There is still an ambition to increase the housing stock. Where that will be depends on, in my view, and this isn't necessarily my colleague's view, in my view, depends on where it is mainly needed and the cost. And obviously we are aware that the 10 homes that we built, or we had built in Jaywick, were slightly expensive, more expensive than was expected. I don't think that another 90 homes would be built in Jaywick by the end of next year, which is when the current housing strategy sort of comes to an end naturally. But we are still looking at areas where we can build, could build. There are there's a number of properties we've been gifted recently, and there are a number coming forward. Admittedly, as far as I'm aware, they're not in Jaywick. So I hope that answers the question. I wouldn't say it's in free fall.
So, just to summarise, I would say, in the length of this council's administration, we're not going to see any meaningful builds in Jaywick Sands.
I'd have to say no. I don't think in the next 18 months that is achievable. If that.
No, I meant the length of the council administration. I do realise the plan's coming to an end. Yeah.
My apologies. I can't answer that right now. I can't answer that, whether we're going to build any more in Jaywick Sands. We are buying property, albeit not a great number, because obviously there aren't. I mean, it'd be lovely to be able to buy another 190 or. But there are properties being gifted. There are properties that we're looking at and buying. There's one in Manningtree, one in Ramsey coming forward, and there are more coming forward. Where those are at the moment, I don't know. But as to whether by the end of this administration we'll have built any more in Jaywick, I'm not going to hazard a guess and say yes or no. I think you'd appreciate as to why I don't. Thank you.
Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, just a comment really over the whole issue of temporary accommodation, and Councillor Honeywood will know. I mean, the pressures being faced by temporary accommodation is not just with this council; it's with every council across the country. And when you look at the figures, the latest figures, 112,666 households are now in temporary accommodation. That's a 12% increase on the previous year. And when you look at how many of those are children, it's the highest record ever. 145,800 children are living at the moment in temporary accommodation. That's a 15% increase. And as I say, this is an issue that every council is having to deal with. And you will, Councillor Honeywood, you will know, and I know, and councillors around this table will know, it is the social value added by by delivering this temporary accommodation. I know there's families that I've had to deal with who have had to go in hotels. They've got no cooking facilities, nothing to look after themselves. To me, the social value in delivering this well outweighs the issues that we here around this table take for granted on a daily basis. These people who we deal with, who are in temporary accommodation, the children and family, need somewhere where they can have as a decent home during that time until we find them a proper, decent rented home to live in. This is a long-term issue that we're now having to deal with, and we're dealing with it the best way we possibly can. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. I think I'd like to echo Councillor Henderson's comment around social value. It's a big part of what I believe in. And I think, 32 homes where we can put people into some stable accommodation, and it's not just putting them in there and forget about them. We've got 2 staff based in that area, and those staff are going to help those people find permanent accommodation, because we don't want to keep people on temporary accommodation. They can't move on with their lives. And I think finding permanent accommodation and then using some of the other many services within the council to help people find jobs, kids into schools, and returning their lives, and you'll see reports later on about family support, and how that can make a huge difference to not just us as a council, but other outside bodies. So the social value far outweighs it, but the practical value is that it takes 270,000 a year off of our temporary accommodation, is what I think I've read. And so there is a commercial case for it eventually, and it's a long-term plan. It's not, we're going to do it and it's going to be there for 3 years. I don't see temporary accommodation, and I think you probably agree with me, Councillor Honeywood. It's on the rise, and it's continually to be a problem for across the country. But we're also up against a change of government, and I say change of government, that could be a Conservative government, but it will still change. And things like the policies may change around housing, so we can't commit to any huge forward planning at this moment. But I think we do have a duty to our residents of tendering, and I am more inclined to push to make sure that everybody has a roof over their head than I am inclined to sit there and say, do you know what, we need to build a few houses, and it doesn't matter if some people haven't got a roof. And I think you'd agree with me with that. You that used to be the housing portfolio holder, looking after our residents is the #1 priority for us, and I think that's the way we need to go forward. Councillor Chapman, sorry, Councillor Bray had Chapman. Correct, Councillor Chapman first.
Thank you, Leader. You've actually said some of my points, but I think we've all got to accept it's a way of life that things go up. We can't alter it. It goes up in every one of our businesses, everything we do, unfortunately. I personally think this is a project that needs to be completed. I would certainly support it to be completed. Just got a query though, and it's probably coming from a building family background, if you like, and big building company. Some of these additional costs that have been found surely should have been found right at the very, very beginning. Anything fire related, that's part of everyday standard alterations now. So to find it now, why was it not queried or found right at the very beginning? And I think unfortunately it's coming in on costs to all of you now, and really it should have been highlighted right at the beginning. So I'm just wondering whether we need to question some of our contractors or different people that come in to say these are basic routine alterations, if you like, that are listed. So, but no, I think it's a project that needs to be finished. I agree with Councillor Henderson. We need to put these people into some sort of security. So I'm all for it. Thank you.
And I agree with Councillor Chapman. I think I'm not going to say any more on it because I think we're going to have an investigation. We're going to have a review, 2 separate things. I think we need to see what that comes in. It's going to go to scrutiny. So there's a few bits and pieces we need to look at to see why this happened in the first place. But today's business is about how do we move it forward, and I think looking at whether we pull the plug or not and seeing the different alternatives is clear that the long-term social value and financial case means that we should press on. And so I take your points though, yeah, and I think let's wait for the investigation, let's wait for the review. Yeah, no, that's fine. And I think we'll see what comes out of that. Councillor Bray.
Thanks, Leader. I concur with most of what's been said, 100%. Where there is a massive social value involved in this, and that's important. It's part of what we do. Also, I agree with you. Financial benefits still are positive, very positive. So, and we're in a position where we're already committed to 1.8 million. Another 473,000 gets us there. We're almost in a position where it would be ludicrous to stop. So, no question, it needs doing both financially and socially. I think in our little appendix, that green line is slightly concerning, and we're on a slightly different issue here because, as you say, the investigation is separate to whether we move forward. But I think anybody looking at that and finding that there'd been an unauthorised expenditure of 386,000 might want some kind of comfort or knowledge that that can't happen again, even between now and the investigation. So we'd like some kind of assurance, I think, that that is now being looked at a lot more carefully. Because, yes, okay, this has happened and things happen. Look, that's why they put rubbers on the end of pencils, but it's quite a big error. And overseeing that error is the responsibility of the administration and the cabinet. I think I said not long after you're elected, congratulations on being leader. By the way, now everything's your fault. And it sort of is. And there's sort of no getting away from that. So I'm a little bit concerned about the level of oversight and just how much of a grip we as councillors or the administration had over this. Because after all said and done, it's councillors that run the council. Councillors are in control. And so when it goes wrong, it's councillors' fault. And so I just want some form of assurance that that kind of thing can't happen again.
So I'm going to go back to my response to Councillor Chapman. That review has already started. Yeah, so the Chief Exec asked for that. It's in the document. The reassurances are also in the document. You know, those are the best reassurances we can have. You know, so you know, if somebody's going to do something and they're not going to tell us, then you know, how do you pick it up until it's already been done? And I think generally, you know, the way it's been handled by the senior management is right and appropriate. I'm loving the fact it's going to scrutiny because I want answers just as much as everybody else. I said, but I think the fact that the review needs to be impartial and we need to understand why it all happened. It's all in place and it's moving forward. It's not we're going to sit there and talk about it for 4 weeks and move it along. You know, it's something that
It's just a point of clarification, really. I have the feeling that people think I'm against the project when they said we wanted to continue. I'm not against the project. It was a project that I was privileged to get underway in the first place, and I wanted to finish, and it's important that it is completed. My concern, as I said before, is that in my view, the cost has spiraled out of control and we've lost control of the public purse. And I was looking for assurances that that's not going to happen as we proceed. And your good self has actually said that when you said this is the final number. So I'm happy with that. So my point was around we've lost control of the cost. It wasn't about calling the project into doubt. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so I'll come to the second, Councillor Bush. I think my quote was, I'm told this is the final number, but I'm happy to take that. So, but yes, my assurances still stand. I feel very confident that is the final number. I've spoken to Councillor Baker and officers around that. And I haven't taken your comments negatively in any way, shape or form. You're just doing your job as group leader and eventually scrutiny chairman when it comes to you. So I'll be looking forward to your recommendations when that finally hits. Councillor Bush.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I fully support the recommendations for this report. But the point I want to make, listening to Councillor Chapman, Councillor Honeywood and Councillor Bray, amongst others, regarding the project. When you start looking into the detail, some projects are complex in terms of what are unforeseen. And when you look at some of these bigger numbers that are in there are a lot of unforeseen, particularly utility projects. And when you're talking about fire protection and issues like that, the legislation does change its interpretation. So there's some big numbers that are in there that we never probably had sight of in that preparation of that. I think the review will probably identify that. And I do understand a part of this review will be looking at where is negotiation to confirm numbers. So what the leader has said about his interpretation that this is the final number, I think we've got enough evidence in front of us now from a personal perspective to say, yeah, I think we're there in terms of where we are. What can we look at that maybe there is some savings still to be made? I don't know. I'm not obliged to that. But I just see this one of those projects when you start looking at the unforeseens that was arisen, couldn't see it coming. You're hit with them, and then that happens in contracting. As Jane said, some things you can mitigate through the specification, some things you can't. And this is one of those projects I think that's been difficult because of that, what I've seen in front of me in my past experience. Thank you, Leader.
Very much. And can I bring in our 151 officer, perhaps?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I think it was important. I mean, you mentioned in your response that the assurances are within the report. So I just want to really highlight one because it addresses your point, Councillor Bray. I think it's a really, really important point. Is a review takes time, and in time it can happen again, which is exactly the point. And I think, and for me, it's on the addendum report. It's the item B, the Chief Executive's item B, which is finalising the directive to all senior managers. I think it's really, really important that actually, if you're a senior manager and you're committing the council to expenditure, you check the budget's in place, the decisions in place. So that is a really, really important thing I think we need to do quickly, and it's going to be done as soon as possible. Hopefully it gives you assurance that to prevent a reoccurrence in the immediate term.
Mr. Bray, and then hopefully
just
move
quickly to say thank you for that. That tied up really what I was looking for, and I really appreciate that answer. It's much more detailed. So thank you, and I will pay closer attention and read that one again. Thank you.
Right, just clarifying a couple of bits. There are no other comments. Okay, so it's been moved by Councillor Baker, seconded by me. Are we all in agreement with the report and the appendix, please? Thank you very much. Right, I'll move us on to item number 13, and this is the report of the Partnership Portfolio Holder, Gina, and this is the Family Solutions update. Over to you, Gina.
Okay, thank you. So this report is to approve an additional Family Solutions Officer post in Harwich. After the previous success of this post, money was set aside while we looked at the value for money, which this report sets out quite well, I think. For those of you who don't know, this service, Family Solutions Officer work intensely with families for up to 12 months at a time. The families volunteer themselves and they actually identify the issues that they need help with. And after working with them, hopefully it empowers them to carry on with the improved measures. So there's less of a strain on other services. And some of these issues they deal with, they range from domestic violence and truancy to unemployment and mental health. So yeah, very, very intense, very intense. I think that if you have read the report, there are very many good examples on pages 256 to 265, feedback from people that have been helped. And it actually does show that it is a good value for money. So I'm recommending, I stated on page 252, also adding that further funding of this is looked at in the grant funding review going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Placey. Do you have a seconder?
Yes, Leader, I'd like to second the recommendation to second this report. Obviously, providing support like this, is cost effective in terms of its social value. It reduces pressure on frontline services. We've just heard about providing solutions to our housing problem, and providing services such as this are all part of this council's role in supporting our residents across all areas of their lives. So I'm very happy to second this and support the recommendations.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barry. Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I just wanted to say a few words about which has already been said about the value of family solutions. My dealings with them also directing people, signposting families to them, and again, members will know. And we were just talking about an issue about temporary accommodation with this Section 21, which can be issued for no reason at all. Evict families. The amount of families I have coming forward to us who have not got a home, can't afford to feed their families. There's somewhere to go now. I've got somewhere to signpost them to the lounge where Family Solutions will be there, not just to give out a food parcel, but actually take on all of the issues and all the issues surrounding those families and deal with them and support them, and also signpost them to other networks, as what's already been mentioned about domestic violence groups and that who will support these families. So having them there, and I know for a fact that the lounge is actually, it started off on, I think 1 day, 2 day, now it's nearly all week that people can drop in there and get that support, knowing that, like I said, housing organisations are in there and these other organisations which will support any issue that those families come with, and not just, like I say, not just send them away with a food parcel, but actually work with those families to try and sort out their problems, rehouse them if need be, and continue that good work. So I'm really pleased that this is going forward, and we're continuing with this.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. And I think, for me, it's a great scheme, and we've got it in the council in general. But I think if we focus our resources in the areas where we have these sort of most in need families, and I've seen firsthand the difference it can make to somebody's life. It improves the quality of their life, and it's so important that instead of allowing somebody to spiral down, that we intervene and help them spiral up. And then eventually they take themselves away from us and lead good quality lives. And I think that's so important. That's something we all strive for. So that's my comments on it. Is there any comments from anyone else? Okay. In that case, it's been moved by Councillor Placey, seconded by Councillor Barry. Are we all in agreement? Thank you very much. Okay, the next one is item number 14. And this is the report of the Partnership Portfolio Holder, Gina, and allocation of funding to the Mental Health Hub. All yours, Gina.
Okay. As you can see, the purpose of the report is to seek approval to allocate 28,000 to the Mental Health Hub, which is run by Citizen Advice Tendering, by the use of an Addressing Health Inequality Mental Health Subsidy Scheme. The Mental Health Hub is the only one of its kind in tendering. We are one of 4 funders, and the ICB is the main administrator, the lead administrator for the service level agreement with CAT. I've actually been privileged to see this working firsthand. They provide direct support to people with mental health issues and recovering from mental health issues. And they also provide volunteering opportunities, and many of these volunteers carry on to further education and employment. And so it fits our priority of improving the quality of life. And we've also, as I've already said, because of the new subsidy controls, we have developed our own policy for this so that we meet the rules and regulations around that. And this is also recommending that further funding is part of the grant review that is going forward. So I think it's a very worthwhile cause, and I'm with the recommendations as on page 268.
Thank you, Councillor Placey. Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Leader. Yeah. Well, I fully welcome and second this and endorse this report. It's such a valuable service.
Hey, Councillor Bush, would you mind turning off your mic? Thanks.
You know, it's such a valuable service. You know, for 9 years, they provide this service, and we all recognise the mental health issues and inequalities that we face in areas of our district. And so to actually support the 28,000 as a part of a partnership going into this fund to allow it to continue is crucial. It's crucial. And the thought of actually not being able to do it and this service being pulled, I'd like to think out what that impact on those that really need to reach out and have some help and have some consultation with these valuable volunteers that do a great job. So yeah, I'm fully behind this whole report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bush. And I remember when the mental health hub used to be an old road, and I was extremely excited to see that it had outgrown its organisation in Old Road and was moved to the centre of town. And recognising that mental health is not something that should be stigmatised, is that the right word? A stigmatism in society now, but it's something that we should embrace and ensure that everybody has good mental health. And I think one of the things that the organisation does is it takes those people who don't think they've got the resilience to move through life comfortably, and it empowers them to recognise their own strengths and skills and build that resilience into them. And I think it's an absolutely worthy cause, and I fully endorse your report today. Any comments, please? Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Placey, seconded by Councillor Bush. Are we in agreement? Thank you very much. On to agenda item number 15.
Thank you, Leader. And again, I declare an interest and leave the room at this stage.
And I will endeavour to remember to bring you back. So this is a joint report of corporate finance and governance portfolio holders and the partnership portfolio holder. And this is the part-funded police community support officer for Harwich and Dovercourt. And I believe, Gina, you're going to lead on this for us.
Okay, so we can talk about Councillor Henderson while he's not here then. Right, this is to continue to part fund a PCSO in Harwich and Dovercourt up until March 2025. It's agreed yearly, and the cost of this was agreed by Cabinet back in April. So hopefully it'll be agreed today. PCSOs are good at gathering intelligence. They're good at attending events to encourage the public to come and meet them and see what they can do. It's an extra resource to support our community safety partnership work. I think everything else is in the report. So I move the recommendations on page 279. Oh, and I should also add, of course, this is another funding arrangement that will be reviewed in the grant funding going forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And as it's our report, I'll second it. So I'm more than happy to. And I think it's important to note, and if you read the report, that after Clacton, Harwich has more reports of crime and bits and pieces than the rest of the district put together. And so it's a key and important thing. And without those people, the police wouldn't be able to do certain operations because they themselves wouldn't have the capacity. And it's not just us paying for something. This is a joint venture with Harwich, which is hence the reason why Councillor Henderson is. But also the police have stepped up and they're allowing match funding with that. So when we provide a PCSO, they've also provided one alongside that, and that is making a difference to the overall crime stats in Harwich. So, comments. Councillor Honeywood.
I am. Okay. I was waiting for the fanfare. It didn't happen. No. Okay. Yes. Thank you. I'd like to draw your attention to page 280, in which I'm going to quote the monitoring officer, in which has said it is worth drawing attention to the need to comply with the previous decision of Cabinet to consider the proper long-term position of this post through wider external funding review currently underway. Future decisions should be made in a timely manner, especially noting the impact on the post holder and partnership working. My question is that we are now continuing to fund best part of 25,000 for this post. We have a Harwich Town Council, but when we look at other areas such as Frinton and Walton Town Council, and I believe Alresford, and I'm sure there are others, those councils are funding the PCSOs. Why are we continuing to do this when other town and parish councils are providing that funding? It's clear in the monitoring officer's report that this should be looked at, and it doesn't seem to have been done. And in addition, it means obviously other taxpayers effect subsidising a town and parish council where others are having to pay.
I'm happy to answer that one. I think I'll start with, you actually put this in place, at the time. And
did, but I'm quoting the monitoring officer's report on the current situation.
And I'll finish by saying there is a review going on at the moment. It's something that we've recognised because Substance Control brought it in. So we need to look at review. And it's one of those things where we haven't had a review of what we support for quite some time. And that's not just in the last year. I'm talking about your previous administration as well, into what the priorities of our councils are. And I really just want to refer back to, in the last 5 years, our priorities have changed. Mental health before COVID wasn't a significantly big thing at that point, and then it grew and grew and grew to the point where it is a significant thing now, and we should be diverting and focusing resources there. And I'll use that as an example. There are many others. The point being is that we now need to sit there and say, where do we focus our money? And that's the point of the review. At the current moment in time, it's quite an easy fix for the PCSO to be continue to be doing. We can see that that's still evidence to be good working practice, but it's only for 1 year. That's what the report says, and it's only in place until we do the review. And after we've done the review, we'll make a decision on whether that goes forward. As for the other councils and everything else, I think when I spoke about it, there are more crimes in Harwich than the rest of the district put together. And I think when we do the review, we will look at exactly what we're going to do around the PCSOs and bits and pieces. Thank you, Councillor Honeywood. Okay, Councillor Scott.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Honeywood mentioned my area, yes, we do have PCSO. We've had a PCSO in my part of the world for at least 10 plus years, and we share the cost with Great Bentley. People in my part of the world approach her, they phone her up, she goes to social events, she goes to community hubs, she meets with residents, she discusses issues that they feel they want to talk to someone face to face rather than phone a police officer up. She does speed checks in my part of the world, and she goes to Great Bentley, does speed checks there at the Green. So a PCSO is in my view, is a direct link to a police officer, someone who can go to get support from police elsewhere. PCSOs are there, they walk around, and in my part of the world in particular, there's a lot of elderly people who want to see a uniform on the beat. At the moment, the police don't come to our part of the world. That's why we have a PCSO. In my parish council put forward a proposal for a parish council good 10 odd years ago, and we had to share it with another council because we couldn't afford to pay out straight away. But we shared it with Great Bentley, and it's been a success story. I'm sure Councillor Matt Williams in Great Bentley will agree that it's a good service to have a uniform on the beat in our area. She does all sorts of things. So I do support the concept of having a PCSO officer, because while the police may be busy doing other things, a PCSO can do the smaller things that people actually appreciate. And people in different communities may not necessarily want to phone 999 or 101, but if they know a PCSO is actually walking around their community chatting, then you have a good rapport with this person, and these people in those communities will then eventually trust an individual like a PCSO rather than phone some random person over the phone. So having a good rapport with a PCSO in the community, in my view, is a benefit. And this PCSO has a direct link with a radio to contact police further afield. So it adds a sort of a confidence support there for people living in that community, and it's been reasonably successful in my part of the world. There's mixed views. Why people saying, why do we have to repay Essex Police already? Why do we have to pay additional money for a PCSO? The cost, in my view, is beneficial to the community, and it brings some sort of uniform type person in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Leader. I agree with everything Councillor Scott said about PCSOs. They're an invaluable source, no question, and they do all the things you say they do, and they do them extremely well. We have, in my opinion, the best PCSO in the country. You'd probably argue with that. But I think the issue here is not about how good they are. We know that they are excellent. The issue is who pays for them. And as my colleague Councillor Honeywood has rightly pointed out, other town councils and parish councils pay for them themselves, as indeed Councillor Scott does too, with the assistance of another parish council. And what we find slightly strange is that one area seems to be receiving funding from tendering where nobody else does. Now, I didn't set it up, so it wasn't my fault. So I think I'm not necessarily opposed. I'm happy to see PCSOs on the street in any way they can be put there, but I think come the review, the question should be asked, is it right to do it for one area, not others? If we do for one, should we not do for all? I think that's the question. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. And I don't think that's the right question at all, by the way. I don't think we do one thing and not for all. We've had that argument banding around this council since ever I've been a councillor, and I'm sure officers will tell me it's been banding around for a long time. We will, of course, do some things for one area over another because that's what the priorities set out, and that's where the best value of investment practice would say we should put that money. But you're right, we are going to have a review on that. And when we do that review, obviously your comments will be fed into that review. And I think if it comes to it, when it comes back out and they say, do you know what, we're getting good value for money, the crime is down, people are happier in Harwich, it's not needed for the rest of the district, I'm happy to go with that recommendation. I have no idea where the review will go, because that is the whole point of review, to understand and identify the gaps. And I'm assuming that the previous administration identified the lack of provision of a PCSO in Harwich as a gap at the point. And you were part of that administration when it was doing that, although you didn't actually do it. So But yeah, those are my points. Councillor Placey.
I was just going to say thank you very much for the comments and the discussion because the review comes under my responsibility. So I've made a note of those and thank you.
Councillor Bray, you may make one final point.
I will do. Thank you, Chairman. It is also worth pointing out that unlike Tendring District Council, of course, Town and Parish Council can pre-SIP in a way that we can't. So if they feel there is a need for a greater service, they can pre-SIP for that service. I accept what you say, there are different needs across the district, but everybody in the district pays their council tax. Thank you, Leader.
Noted. So it's been moved by Councillor Placey, seconded by me. Are we in agreement? Thank you very much. Would someone like to go and get Councillor Henderson for me, please? Okay, agenda item 16. So this is the report of Partnership Portfolio Holder, once again, you, Councillor Placey. And this is proposed variations to the existing public space protection order in Clacton Town Centre, including an extension to the area covered and new conditions to the existing order. I'll leave you to start.
Okay, sorry, my voice is going to go. Right, as you can see, after public consultation, this report seeks the agreement of the Cabinet to agree to the variation of the current PSPO, which is asking to extend to 7 new areas with 3 new conditions. They are all listed on page 288. And I need to draw your attention to page 292, where it states, in relation to the proposed variation to the existing public space protection order in Clacton Town Centre, including an extension to the area covered and new conditions to the existing order, any rights under Articles 9, 10 and 11 have been considered and are not impacted in this case. And I therefore, I don't think I've checked my notes, no. I therefore move the recommendations as on page 288, 289.
Thank you, Councillor Placey. Have you got a seconder?
Chairman, I'm quite happy to second that. Being aware of the areas, at least 6 of the areas where it's proposed to extend the PSPO 2, having had residents contact me and the ward council, which is just on the border with mine, I welcome this. I think it's something that we definitely need, and I think that as Councillor Placey's mentioned the Human Rights Act, I don't think it's what's the word I'm looking for. It's imperative that we do consider it, but the interference that is justified under those 3 articles. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. And I must admit, it saddens me when we have to put a PSPO in. You know, I'd like to think better of people, but in this case, I know it's definitely needed, and I can wholeheartedly agree with it. Councillor Honeywood.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. As you know, this has been called for quite some time now, and I know that it's welcomed by the councillors in the wards that are now covered. And I know, speaking to them, that residents will welcome it as well, because there has been some challenging behaviour in those areas in the past that's caused distress. So really welcome to see it there. The only question I have is, how is this going to be enforced? Obviously, we've spoken about PCSOs in the earlier item. We've now got an extended area to cover. How will it be enforced?
Councillor Placey.
Good question. I think as before, it'll be on a case by case basis. Haven't got a crystal ball, so I think it will very much depend on that. I could ask one of the officers to give you more information if you require it.
Okay. I think, like all council enforcement, you know, it comes down to where the resources need to be committed and everything else. So I would say that our enforcement team is being restructured at the moment to take on new tasks and bits and pieces. I think it should be, we now have the powers. I think that was the problem before. It wasn't that we didn't want to enforce it. I mean, it was actually one of those things where we felt our hands were tied quite a bit. And we're looking to our colleagues in the police, and I'm not shunting it into them, but we didn't have the powers, and this is the whole reason why we brought the PSPO in. Now that we have the powers, you've only got to look at recent events where we're quite quick at removing people and moving them on. And I think enforcement for us isn't really a concern or an issue, but if you feel it is, Councillor Honeywood or the ward member, then perhaps just contact one of the cabinet members responsible for enforcement, or indeed myself. Comments? In that case, it's been moved by Councillor Placey, seconding by Councillor Baker. Are we in agreement? Thank you very much. Agenda item 17. And this is reference from community leadership and over scrutiny of school age education provision. And this one again is Councillor Placey. So believe, just check. School age education, yeah, page 305, Councillor Placey.
Okay, if I can, school age education, right. The Education Task and Finish Group highlighted the significant challenges both for tendering secondary schools and young people in relation to mental health and school attendance. I welcome this report and the focus around the mental health of our young people, as it is one of the significant reasons for non-attendance. And with the many challenges young people face, early mental health support and provision is critical. As teachers are not routinely trained around mental health, projects such as the Wellbeing Hubs provide an excellent and very powerful opportunity to support our young people and upskill our teachers. I support the championing of mental health services for young people and also the broader provision, for example, around family solutions, which we talked about earlier, which can provide wider holistic support for families and thereby opportunity for young people. Attendance is a key priority of the Tendering Education Strategic Board this academic year. The work of the Task and Finish Group has identified some key areas of focus, and I look forward to seeing how this work develops.
Thank you for your response. Do you have someone to second that response, Councillor Placey?
Yeah, I'd like to second that, Leader, and can I just commend, in doing that, commend the work of the Community Leadership Overview and Scrutiny Committee for their, their very detailed report and their good work on this subject, which covers again a wide range of social areas, and is part of our overall approach to supporting residents and particularly children where we can. So I'd second this.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. And can I add my thanks to the Task and Finish group of that committee? It's an extensive report, and whilst TDC doesn't have any responsibility for education, from our residents' point of view, education and attendance at school to learn that education is a highly important factor for us. It allows aspiration, it allows growth for our youngsters, and I think it's, it's something that we should use our influence as best we can to try and get the very best for our younger generation. So thank you for the report and for the comments. Are there any comments from the floor? Councillor Honeywood, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Last May, Councillor Placey said that one of her priorities was putting pressure on the health authorities to increase the provision for GPs and dentists. I wonder if we could be informed of the any pressures that have been applied and any successes that have been achieved at this stage.
I'm not. I think you've got the wrong question. This is school education. Yeah. So we'll pick that one up in a minute. We'll do a retake in a minute. So let's try again. Are there any other comments? Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, I think it'd be wrong of us not to mention, because the issue of SEND at the moment is a real big issue for parents across Essex, where it was only a week ago that parents were raising their concerns at Essex County Council level about the support or not support of families throughout Essex, and Essex did come out pretty badly when they've been assessed on deliver and send support. So I think it's just worth mentioning that this is a really good bit of work, and we should recognise there are some issues and concerns around SEND. And the other thing I would mention is this issue about not being in school. I think I first raised this with the Committee on Children Missing Education, Elected Home Education. I've been on a task and finish group on this with ECC. There is a real concern about the number of children who are not in school or should be in school, and SEND is another one of those concerns which we've been looking at, where they should be entitled to an education when they're not being. And so I think the committee have taken this on and done a really good job with it, and it does highlight the issue and the needs to give further support to those families and those children.
Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to say I know we are not the Education Authority, but I don't know whether councillors are aware, but in the rural areas in particular, we have a lot of families that have to travel a fair distance to take their kids to primary schools. Some communities have to take their school kids all the way, possibly all the way to Fingringhoe in Colchester. And as the crow flies, it's maybe a couple of miles on the map, but to get there, it's a good 20 to 25 mile trip round and there and back. And I don't know whether the portfolio holder could possibly have a word with Essex County Council to really look into the primary school education in the rural areas of TDC area, because there are people that have to travel a fair distance in the morning to take their children to school. And new places that are coming up in September onwards. They're building loads of houses in our district, but the education there is not doing a good service to the residents in the rural communities. And Essex County Council, in my view, should really seriously look into that matter of urgency, because it will end up having kids not going to school because the parents will have to juggle wherever to go to work, can afford to pay for the extra fuel and time and costs of going on transport. And I've heard from some families that they've said to put them in a taxi and send them off in the morning, which is frankly unacceptable. So I think we really need to contact Education Authority and say, look, you really need to do some work on this, for the rural communities, across the rural communities where families are struggling to get their kids in primary schools and they have to go to another district, to another area to send their kids to school. Thank you.
Councillor Placey.
Councillor Scott, can I talk to you afterwards and get more information about this? Because this is something, I mean, transport is something that's raised in every area that meeting that I go to. But this could be something that we can feed into the TESB as well. So I'll speak to you afterwards. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you, Leader. Yes, we'll appreciate the conversation with you, Councillor Placey, going forward. Many thanks.
Any other comments? Okay, so that is moved by Councillor Placey, seconded by Councillor Barry. The recommendation is that the recommendations made by the Community Leadership Overview and Scrutiny Committee be noted and that the response of the partnership portfolio holder thereto be endorsed. Do I have your agreement? Thank you very much. Agenda item number 18, reference from the Community Leadership and Overview Scrutiny Committee. They have been busy. Scrutiny of mainstream and community transport provision in the district. And I believe, Councillor Henderson, this one's actually yours, so you can take a break, Gina.
Thank you, Leader. And I'll draw members' attention to page 318, where this is my comments and recommendations to the Cabinet. And I just want to give my congratulations to the chair of the committee, Councillor Graham Steady, for the work that he's done on this with his group, the Task and Finish group. And the report certainly highlights how reliant and valuable our community transport groups are to this district, and making sure people get around to the essential services such as hospitals and social care and shops and wherever else. And it also highlights the need for a decent transport network across the district. That's something that we desperately need. It's okay bringing all of these reports to you about levelling up and improving our town centres, improving different parts of the district, putting on events in the district. But we need to make sure that people have got a reliable network, transport network, to be able to enjoy those investments that we're making across the district. So I think it's really good news that we're looking at a transport summit. It then highlights it again and brings it as a priority, not just for this council, but for Essex County Council to look at as well for the future. So yeah, this is a really good report. I'm really pleased to recommend what's on page 318 to the Cabinet, and once again congratulate the valuable work that the Scrutiny Committee and the Task and Finish group have done and provided to this Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henson, and I'm happy to second this one. And your comments and endorse them. I think for me, I'd just like to say, as you probably already did, I'd like to thank the Mainstream and Community Transport Provision Task and Finish group. I mean, what a line that is. But I was invited to their meeting when they were doing their investigation, and I was very impressed with the level of questioning around what we were planning to do and what we wanted to do. And so I think I fully endorse all of their ideas and everything else. And I'm not sure how we're going to implement them yet, but as per your comments, I'm quite happy to second it. Councillor Bush.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yeah, well, I welcome this this review or this report from this Transport Provision Task and Finish group. It's quite good name. All the items on it are all key. We've talked about for so long about the importance of connectivity in our district. For a ward member that sits in the rurals in the middle, sandwiched between Harrishes and Clacton, I can speak probably for many of those in the rural areas that we lack connectivity. When you travel around areas in the UK, you see the transport systems going into towns, into welfare and to hospitals on a regular basis. We suffer from that, and on the basis of this, we're talking about the growth of what we're going to, the opportunities that we're facing, whether it's, the green hubs of Harwich and the developments, whether it's the garden communities and all the other developments. This is very, very key that we actually consider and address these items. And I agree with what you're saying, Need, is how do we do it is another thing, but it needs to be on an agenda. It's important moving forward for the legacy and for the future opportunity, future-proof this district to add even further value and opportunity for those around us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bush. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Leader. I just want to make a comment with regard to their second sort of recommendation of Cabinet, which was advocacy for an improved rail service from Clacton, moving to a half-hourly service. That's been pushed and talked about for years by various local transport groups, but it's not just Clacton. It should be from Harwich as well. Our service across the district, we have one mainline train station in Tendring at Manningtree. Well, it's Manningtree Station, it's in Lawford, but so I fully support that, and I think we should be pushing Greater Anglia, Network Rail, or whatever they're called now, because it's been proven in other parts of the country that if you improve the service and make it more frequent, the use of it goes up. And I think that a lot of people would possibly turn around and go, do you know what? I'd rather go by rail because I can get some work done rather than sitting in the car on the A12 for 3 hours trying to get somewhere. So I fully support Councillor Henderson's comments, and also they've done a hell of a bit of work there. I'm very impressed. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Baker, and I totally agree with you. And as an example of your rail versus car, I often have to travel to Essex County Council, and I gave up travelling there by car because my colleagues would leave before me and they would arrive after me and I would go by rail. So there is an advantage to a regular mainline service. So I totally agree with you. Councillor Scott.
Thank you. Yeah, I welcome the report. I really do. I mean, transport in our district is crucial, especially you have like a vast rural areas, and I'm glad Councillor Bush, a fellow rural councillor, has mentioned that in his area. Same with my area. But the problem I have at the moment is just recently come about, and I'm getting people from in the rural areas that have said to me, and I don't think the Task and Finish Group has taken that up, is when buses are literally, when people put their hand up to get a bus, the bus goes past and they have to go to a time on the timetable. I've had 4 residents in my part of the world and other villages have asked why bus drivers are just going through. Are they to a time? Are they delayed or late? And it's only in recent things happening, and I don't know whether it's something's changed with the bus services in our areas, or it's a new thing's happening. Oh, there's only one person at the bus stop. I'll just carry on going. One person missed their appointment to go to the hospital because of that, and frankly, it's not acceptable. And the other issue is some bus routes have been removed, like for example the Clacton to Brightsea bus that was cut some time ago, and some people have to go to Thorrington to get another bus to connect the bus that goes to Clacton. So there are issues along those lines, and I was wondering whether the Task and Finish Group should really look at reinstating major routes like from Brightsea to Clacton, because I'm sure residents in Brightsea would like to go to Clacton and can't get there, so they have to go all the way to Thorrington and get off at Thorrington to get another bus, and it could be take all day. And bus drivers not stopping to pick up people at bus stops, which is crucial. And in the rural areas where the services are limited and not as frequent as major town routes. And one other issue is some buses go to Colchester from Elmstead, say, at 10 to 6, and there's no other buses coming back at night. So they remove the services. You can get there, but you can't get back. And frankly, it's unacceptable.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Scott. I think the time for feedback into the Scrutiny Committee's Task and Finish Group may have passed. But what I would say is perhaps you could take out for one of the portfolio holders. Information we'll probably need is which bus groups, because there are 2. There's Headingham and First. So, if you get us that information, then perhaps we can organise a meeting for you with those groups, assuming they wish to attend.
Much appreciated. I really do appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Henderson, seconded by myself. The recommendation is on page 318. Are we agreed? Thank you very much. Agenda item number 19, page 335. I think possibly the last one. The Cabinet by the scrutiny of improving access to NH dentistry for residents in Tendring. Over to you, Councillor Placey.
Okay. Oh. I'm sorry, I'll read this one out. I welcome the update provided by the Integrated Care Board, the ICB, who now have the responsibility for dentistry, and in particular, their focus on high priority groups and urgent care, especially as councillors raise concerns with emergency access and treatment. In addition, utilising the opportunity around contractual flexibility to improve oral outcomes, patient access and affordability is welcomed. A focus on behavioural management to support people to manage their own dental health, and an increase in staffing as the opportunity for training at the University of Essex develops. Oh, sorry. That, yeah, read right, is it? As it develops, will help support a stronger preventative approach. This will assist the dentists in our area to be able to focus on the most serious cases. A further update to the committee in future would be helpful to ensure the work that the ICB highlighted is actually delivering outcomes and improving oral health in our area. Shall I carry on with the answer?
Okay, and as a second, I'm more than happy to second that one for your Councillor Placey. And I think we'll just go straight to the question that we're all dying to hear. So,
thank you, Chairman. I have made a note to myself, must pay more attention. Pardon? No fanfare either, no, nothing. Yes, my question was, you gave a commitment in May last year, putting more pressure on health authorities to increase the provision of GPs and dentists. I wondered what methods you were using to apply pressure and what achievements you'd had.
Councillor Placey.
Okay, well, they wouldn't let me use the thumb screws. I have to go through committees. And you'll see from this that Essex University are making big moves in training up not necessarily fully qualified dentists, but hygienists and assistants that can. I think the move in most healthcare now is to not go straight to the main practitioner, but see if issues can be dealt with before that, so that the pressure is taken off, given that we haven't got enough dentists at the moment, so it gives us time to get a few more. And the ICB now are looking at it much more. And as I understand it, I'm not sure that it's been fully publicised, and I'm sure John will pick me up if I'm wrong on this, that people that need emergency care can ring 111. And we have got moves in place to use the SOS bus to provide dental care. And I get this word wrong, orthodontics. Yeah, that's the right one. With regard to GPs, we've recently started. We've had our first meeting of the Alliance Place group that's come from the ICB via the North East Essex Alliance. That this group now are looking much more at the wider determinants of health. So in bringing in housing to make people much more responsible and give them the opportunities to improve their health, to take the pressure off of the services. I know it's not an immediate fix, and we've still got problems. I have problems trying to get a doctor's appointment. I do know now that a lot of doctors' surgeries have actually got practitioner nurses in place, so that you've got a bit more of an opportunity to see somebody. That's as far as I've got at the moment, I'm afraid.
Any other comments? Okay. It's been moved by Councillor Placey. It's been seconded by myself. The recommendation is on page 336. Are we all in agreement? Thank you very much. Agenda item number 20 is management item teams. There are none. Date of the next meeting is Friday, the 21st of June, 2024, and I hereby close the meeting. Thank you very much.